Cubs lose another one-run game. Let's go.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thank you for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you could help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and comment anything below. Today's episode is presented by our great partners at Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Cubs lose 2-1 to the Guardians on Tuesday as the Cubs fall to 59-62 overall and 17-25 in one-run games. They will be at least 4 games back of the third NL wildcard spot by the time game action begins again on Wednesday. Sam, it was a drag of a game in my estimation. Javier Assad put up a nice fight, but no clutch hitting remains and some other common ingredients as well as the Cubs lose again.
Yeah, let's start with the positives. I've been pretty hard on Javier Assad all year. I thought he was really good tonight. You know, the reason he was only able to go 4 2/3 and the trouble he ran into was really not his doings. A lot of lucky hits today. And he really battled and gave the Cubs a chance. And if you told me before this game, 4 2/3, 1 earned from Assad with, Boyd going, making his first start in over a year, I would have felt really good. I also want to publicly apologize to my favorite reliever on this team, Jorge Lopez. I continue to call him Javier Lopez because there used to be a pitcher by that name, and then of course the Braves catcher Javi Lopez. Jorge Lopez is the best reliever on this ball club, so I need to pronounce his name correctly. As far as this game goes, Matt, you said it for me. It's so interesting. There's always different takeaways game to game, right. Slugging, this and this. But to me, I've had the same takeaway for like a year and a half. The team doesn't perform enough in leverage. The Cubs are now 17-25 in one-run games, as you just pointed out. That's worse. Last year they were 21-24. I think they were. It was either 21-24 or 21-25. I think it was 21-24, and then they lost an extra inning game by more than one. So it was 21-24. So they're actually worse in one-run games this year than they were last year. And I believe in 2022, they were just 25-26 in one-run games. So they're getting worse dealing with leverage. And Jed has cited all these different things. We play too many. We got to blow more teams out. Well, it's not that. You know who's played 37 one-run games? That's only 5 less than us? You know who?
The Brewers?
Cleveland. You know what their record is? It's 23-14 because of 2 statistics. Right. They hit 277 with runners in scoring position. And they got the best closer in the business, who I've never seen a closer in the last 5-6 years pitch 4 days in a row, by the way. Unbelievable.
Should get Cy Young consideration.
Hat tip to him. Hat tip to Stephen Vogt, emphasizing that I'm not reading a binder. I'm trying to win a division. That's what I'm trying to do. Right. So credit to him. But, Matt, Jed Hoyer, there's a lot of things that Jed's, not done well. We talk about the need of a star. We talk about this. If you're not going to have a star player, and you build your team based on a floor type of metric, a high floor, you got to go get and shut down 9th inning guy. And I understand that they're very difficult to find. And I understand that Jed likes to be cautious because, you know what, it's a volatile market. Camilo Doval was one of the best closers in baseball. He just got optioned by the Giants. I get that it's difficult, but you know what? Go for it, because it's one of the big things that's holding this team back. And in addition, is the clutch hitting. This team doesn't hit in the clutch. They're one of the worst clutch hitting teams in baseball, and they lead the league or close to it. They're at the top of the league in blown saves. And when you have that combination, 2-1 losses, 9-8 losses, 8-7, 19-18, 5-4, 6-5, you're going to lose the majority of those games. So this team has to figure out a way to elevate themselves next year in the clutch, and out of spring training, they have got to go get a shutdown guy. And I understand Jed's going to say, well, hey, I really believed in Alzolay. Merriweather got hurt. We get all of it. Alzolay wasn't the guy, okay? He wasn't the guy. He was the guy last year because you messed up with Fulmer and Boxberger. You need to go find a guy when it's 2-1 in the ninth inning and you bring in Clase for the fourth straight.
The game's over.
I mean, we could have just went live.
Right. You don't even need to watch.
And think about it. In 2016, we had one missing piece. We went and got one of those guys. So
right.
It's that one of those two things has to be solved: the clutch hitting and or the back end. If you solve both, you're contending for a world championship. But to me, that was my takeaway today, is just the lack of clutchness, the lack of ability to find a way to win a tight game.
Well, my early returns would be that they need to do both. And if they do both, then their roster is clearly a playoff-laden roster that will have high expectations entering the 2025 season. But if they're going to continue to double down on run prevention, then they have to have a closer that has done the job for many years. I would like the Cubs to develop their own Emmanuel Clase. But guess what? They're not in a position where they can afford to do that right now. And maybe the one pitcher that we're going to talk about later, perhaps that was a candidate for that. And I was reflecting on my walk on Tuesday morning, I really think the Jed comment about the last 2 months more and more is, okay, I see what I have here. Yes, I would like to see some fruits of our labor here the last 2 months, but not much is changing. So really it is, if it's not to the extent, like we think of it in terms of levels, like how little or big changes will be, but how do you inject players that can do what you're saying, Sam, so the roster truly does change once and for all? Because maybe it is only 1 or 2 positions on the field. They are very crowded for next year, and a lot of these players are good players. But how can you inject this into your team? And I think a lot of what you're saying is, I would have to do a lot of digging on this, but I have to believe that there's also some crossover between clutchness and maybe even a little bit of the power trade that they're so missing. The Guardians, Sam, almost half their runs are via the home run.
Yeah.
Do you think that's some type of coincidence that they win so much?
Yeah, we don't hit enough home runs.
They hit the ball over the fence. They get the last 3 outs of the game, no problem.
Right.
Okay?
And they hit when guys are on anyway.
Right. In high leverage moments. It's wild because the Cubs are top 10 in line drive percentage, Sam. No, I'm sorry. They're 25th in line drive percentage, which isn't the end of the world, because you can cite teams that are that low that are hitting homers, right? The Cubs have, for example, the 9th best fly ball percentage. Well, guess what? It matters 0 because they rank 20 in slugging.
Yeah.
Their current slug pace of 380 entering Monday would be the lowest in franchise history since the 2012 season.
Yeah, they're 21st in slug, 20 in homers. The Guardians are middle of the pack. They're 15th and 13th in those categories. But what the Guardians do, and I think, talking about the Guardians is interesting, because you look at it, what's the one obvious thing the Cubs do better than the Guardians? They have a better starting staff, right?
Right.
But and the Guardians are a World Series contender. And so you like to pin yourself against these type of teams. And what you look at it, right, the margins between these two teams, it's not a big gap. Like I
agree.
don't look at Cleveland and go, "Oh my gosh, we are so far away from being this team." That's not what it is at all.
No.
It's obviously from a player standpoint, it's Clase and Ramirez. I mean, we just don't have anybody that's even close to those caliber guys.
Right. Stars.
But they really are great at developing bullpen arms. They remind me a lot of Milwaukee, Cleveland, except instead of starters, they're just really good at pretty much all the relievers. They get hits, and then obviously guys like Steven Kwan and Naylor. But you look at the true talent. Like somebody tweeted at me today and was just like, "Sam, you're overthinking it. The Guardians are talented, the Cubs aren't." If you do a Cubs Cleveland best 11, right, you're going to see some Cubs representation on there. Swanson's a better shortstop than they have. I think Horner's probably a better second baseman. One of Suzuki or Happ probably finds in there. If they move a guy to center, you know what I mean? Naylor would be in there. You're going to see almost all the starters would be Cubs. It would be like, Steele, Imanaga, Tyone for sure are in there. It's not this, oh my goodness gracious, what are we getting ourselves into? It's the margins of, being able to hit in the clutch, being able to hit a few more home runs and being able to finish games. And you look at the mistake today in the loss, right? Drew Smyly's had a really nice year. You have Bo Naylor on deck, right? That's left on left. Bo Naylor's not going to touch Drew Smyly. You got this guy, Noel, who's on fire, hitting everything out of the park. The one thing you can't do is throw him a cookie and give up a home run. That's the one thing he does. So, it's just, it's a lot of things, but I will say one thing. I really thought we would be better in these games because of the manager situation, and they've been worse. It's a fact so far. The Cubs have been worse in one-run games this year than they were last year, and I just ultimately think we've learned as a show that it's really the players are deciding that for the most part, how they perform in the clutch and what they do. Because I think Ian Happ, who going into this year is probably one of the unclutch hitters. I think he's probably been there just from the eye, their best clutch performer this season. He's hitting, I think, 230 on the campaign.
Yeah, and they're on pace to just play more one-run games. It'd be one thing if they had a lower win percentage, but they're just going to be in more of them.
Yes.
You want to be in less of them.
Yeah, and then win ones you're in. Yeah.
It's really a shame. It's a shame that they're back in that predicament. And, I know I'm a very reflective person, but again, on my walk Tuesday, I can't shake the fact that they were literally the second worst team in the sport for 61 games.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but single game coverage at this point, I'm having some trouble connecting with it.
Got it.
Next time, don't win 22 games over 61.
Yeah, and how many of those games were the offense going to sleep, and then at the end, and then with a close lead, the bullpen coming in and blowing the game. If you have one of the two things we discussed, let's put it like this:
you don't have to be chasing the impossible right now.
If the Cubs had a guy, you can't just say if the Cubs had Clase because nobody has Clase, but if the Cubs had a solid ninth inning guy like a Helsley or something like that, they're a postseason team. That's a fact.
They only need a handful of more wins. It's not like they need 12 more wins. They need 5.
They're not as far off as people think, but I think that's what makes it all the more frustrating.
Totally. 100%. Jamison Tyone versus Alex Cobb. On Wednesday, Cobb's making only his second start of the year. Last week in his first start of the year, he allowed a lot of contact, 4 runs on 9 hits and 4 2/3. So we'll see if the Cubs could salvage the series as they've yet to be swept in 2024. So we'll see if I just jinxed them or not. There was some news before the game, courtesy of a local radio station in town, and that is what we've talked about here on our show. Seiya Suzuki is making a full-time move to being a DH. Let's get into that coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. Get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powered hydration brand in America, because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. It's easy and convenient to tear, pour, and enjoy after a long night, a day of traveling, or a tough workout. Blast off with the iconic summer flavor of Popsicle Firecracker, a festive blend of citrus-fueled lemon lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. So many good memories of that as a kid. Now as an adult, perhaps with Liquid IV. Always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free, and it has triple the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com.
This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. Pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and then watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season, Matt, we only got about a month and a half to go. So don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, folks, let me give you one right now. The next time the Cubs face a lefty pitcher, find Patrick Wisdom and slip in some strikeouts for him, because that's all he does with his roster spot. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entries. Prize Picks is really simple to play, with your entries taking less than 60 seconds to submit, turning $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps of your screen. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's a first deposit match up to $100 by using code LOCKEDONMLB. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app.
The Cubs play the Guardians once again at 5:40 p.m. Central Wednesday, and you can hear every pitch of the Cubs hometown broadcast on SiriusXM by searching Cubs on the SXM app. 670 the scores. Matt Spiegel of the Parkins and Spiegel show, at least for a couple more days, reported on Tuesday that Seiya Suzuki will move to full-time designated hitter once Cody Bellinger is healthy enough to play the field. Suzuki has struggled on defense in his major league career so far, but especially this year, with 3 errors and a defensive rating per Fangraphs of -4.2. Bellinger will presumably play right, with PCA, Sam, remaining as the everyday center fielder. And my question would be, okay, for the rest of this year, but probably full-time DH in 2025 too.
Glad we're talking about Suzuki. I'd like to ask you a question.
That is if he's on the team.
Suzuki will be on the club.
Yeah.
Do you know the last time Seiya Suzuki has gotten an extra base hit?
July 31.
No, it was no, but you're close. It was August. It was August 2nd, I think it was. Is that whatever the Friday was they played the Cardinals? That was the last time. Is that the second? Yeah,
almost 2 weeks ago.
That can't happen when you're supposed to be the best hitter on an offense. You just can't do that. I think this is the right move for the Cubs. I think Suzuki, I thought Taylor McGregor had an interesting mid-game report today. There's so much with Suzuki that sometimes you kind of get fatigued talking about it, because greatness usually just comes out, and at this point it should be out. But, they always talk about how he's very much in his head, right? He's on the iPad a lot. He's taking swings. He's doing all
hard
that
on
stuff.
himself.
He's hard on himself. I think taking the glove out of his hand will help the bat.
Okay.
But we also really need to acknowledge that what happens to him at the plate with these umpires is not some that's kind of crazy thing. It's really impacted his career. And, I don't know. I'll do some digging, to use your words. Maybe
is it coincidental? I don't know. It can't be at this point.
Maybe I'm Shia LaBeouf and Holes. But I'll do some. I'll do some. I've never actually seen that movie, so if that reference doesn't make sense, I just know that they do. It's Holes and they dig. So
it's a good movie.
Anyway,
good book too.
I'll tell you what it is. I've told you this. I think I've told you on and off the air. He takes pitches in a way where it's hesitant and it makes it look like it's a strike, and the ump's confused by it. I think the challenge system next year will really help him, but I think the Cubs are doing him a favor by putting him at DH only, but they have not done right by him with the umpires. And I know that's eye rolling to some people, but it's not right. It's not right. And all 4 at bats of his today, he had an egregious call go against him. And when you're working with somebody that clearly gets frustrated, it's going to affect them. And he swings at pitches then that aren't strikes. And, he actually, when you look at his overall numbers as a Cub, he's a pretty solid hitter. You could only imagine what he'd be if he had somewhat of a respectable strike zone. And I don't know if umpires take advantage knowing that he's not going to argue. I don't know if he has to argue himself, but right. I have watched baseball a long time. I have never seen one hitter get so victimized by umpires consistently. I mean, JD said it's becoming laughable at this point.
Well, it is. It is. And let me help you out. Can you give us an example of a manager that has defended a player that has been proved to be beneficial as a hitter?
Yeah, Aaron Boone does it often.
Right, with a lot of his roster.
And
including the best player on the planet.
One of them was a guy by the name of Aaron Judge.
Right.
And if the Cubs had him, I'd have a division pennant sign hanging right. Yeah, you know what I mean? Because he's going to might hit 60 homers.
Again.
Yeah, so they're playing the Sox right now.
Mike Talkman. Oh, yeah, those Sox got one of the biggest upsets of the year Monday.
Yeah, I believe Juan Soto has hit 2 home runs today for the White Sox. So he'll be a free agent. He's going to get $9 trillion.
The other option in the outfield, as we know, is Mike Talkman. He's been relegated to a bench role since returning from the IL. The only reason why I bring up his name, just to complete the outfield puzzle, is because Spiegel also reported that the position player call-up on September 1 is likely going to be Owen Casey. Now,
can't wait.
This makes sense and was predicted earlier, actually, this month by our everyday listener, Brady, Sam, who you know as well.
Sure.
He's been on some of our live shows because Casey is a Rule 5 draft eligible guy this offseason, so they need to add him to the 40-man soon anyways.
Brady's good with that stuff.
Really good. And so I think we're going to see Owen Casey next month.
Fun.
Speaking of slug.
Yeah, some slug there. We'll have to limit the strikeouts. And,
he strikes out a lot.
It'll be a cameo for him. And we'll see how he does there. But yeah, that'll be exciting to see one of the names we've heard about for a while come up. And,
Darvish trade.
Ultimately, it's, there's Casey, there's Shaw, there's Triantos, there's all these guys. There's Alcantara. Somebody needs to hit when it matters on this team.
Right.
And somebody needs to pitch when it matters on this team. And it's hard to find, but it's not that hard to find. If you just went out and let's just say you went out and said, all right, we're just going to eat it. We're going to go with Josh Hader this year. You know what I mean? If you just gave Josh Hader that, and I understand it's a lot of money. And look,
that's always my point. How do you know unless you do it?
And Josh Hader hasn't even been that good. He's got like a 3.68, but he's got 25 saves. Yeah. He's got 25 saves. His whip's under 1. And you know that's the position. And sure, every now and then he might go through a funk, but it's so much better than this.
Right. Another prospect that we've already seen graduate to the big leagues is Ben Brown, who impressed in his first stint with the Cubs, but has been out 2 months now. Let's get an update on him coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. Welcome back to our great partners over there. A free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Join the over 50 million savers and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,000 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying it by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the Apple or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app. Start earning cash back by using code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, and use code LOCKEDONMLB.
This episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. One more time, just in case Craig Counsell's listening. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your car alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one car, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Motors. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your car alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
Cubs pitcher Ben Brown has been rehabbing in Arizona over the last month, but manager Craig Counsell told reporters on Monday that Brown is being shut down from throwing until he is free of symptoms from a left neck strain. Now, there's been a few different updates on this. There has not, Sam, been surgery yet, and the Cubs, at least according to them on Monday, said there's none expected. But the latest that we had heard was after kind of this very iffy spot where we didn't know what was happening with him. Brown suffered a stress reaction to at least one of his vertebrae in his neck, was the latest I could find. And he is just not comfortable trying to pitch through this soreness. And in fact, that keeps popping up. So while there's not an issue with his arm, this left neck problem keeps coming up. And if you just look at the calendar, it is not on this kid's side to see him again in 2024. It's unfortunate because he really impressed his first stint in the bigs, both as a starter and as a reliever. But it's unlikely that we're going to see him, Sam. And I hope he's back in 2025 and is helping this club win a lot of games.
Yeah, this is a weird one. This is a tough one. The reporting on it's been kind of, I don't know what to use. Maybe careful would be the word I would use. You just haven't gotten a lot on it. Good stuff from you. Really like Ben Brown, like what I saw from him. Just kind of in the mode of wishing him the best with this. Just want him to come back and be able to be 100%. I mean, you can't imagine how frustrating that is for him. And, obviously things for the Cubs haven't gone the right way on the field this year, and off the field, there's been some good, but Ben Brown, Wicks, and Cade Horton, your three main young pitchers, have all dealt with major, major injuries in 2024. And I don't think, to no fault of their own, especially Ben Brown, I don't think they could be depended on or relied on as part of the 2025 team with what they're going through. And we'll have the rough fall and winter months to discuss how the Cubs are going to handle.
October, November is going to be rough.
Yeah, we're going to have to discuss, stuff about, adding a pitcher and doing.
They need to add a pitcher. I'm convinced now.
Well, yeah. So, but honestly, best wishes to Ben Brown. Just get yourself right, for yourself first, and then come back and help this baseball team with his, top end stuff.
Yeah, and it's scary because the other thing I found today, Sam, was the Cubs sent Brown to multiple doctors in the first place.
Yeah,
so that can't be easy.
No, it's a weird situation.
All right, Tyone and Alex Cobb, the former San Fran Giant, who was traded at the deadline to Cleveland, as the Cubs look to salvage this 3-gamer before an off day and then the series with the Blue Jays. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 20 to 30 minutes. We'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcast. He's Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.
There
3 homers for Soto.
Happening here. It's a bad take.